oral lorazepam. Dr. Schaefer discusses this with the prosecution. They chose to leave it out of assimilation, but it was presented to the jury. Was there a motive? Was it intended to mislead? What's the motive?
Yes. You're saying that if he were to consume oral lorazepam, it had to have been before 8 a.m.
Based just on the .008 number and ignoring the fact that that number is in equilibration with the plasma, yes.
All right. You also did a midazolam simulation.
That is correct.
So in summary, most of what's on this slide you've already seen, but there are 2 points I want to just touch on. And that is on bullet number 3, it says here, this agent, oral lorazepam or IV lorazepam in general, does not undergo post-mortem redistribution, which means will not leak from one chamber to another. So what's in the stomach did not, the free lorazepam in Michael's stomach did not get there by post-mortem redistribution. The open vials that you see here in this picture was found in Michael's exclusive master's bedroom. No one is allowed in that room. His kids sometimes by invitation. These were found during the investigation of the house. This is one of the bottles that's responsible for the pills that was found in his stomach. And if you look at Dr. Schaefer's hypothesis of placing him on IV lorazepam, 10 shots, 40 milligrams, keeping him in a coma or a sleep state beyond the hours of 10 o'clock, and on top of that, placing him on a propofol infusion, I want to tell you that absolutely did not happen. Total fabrication. Now this section I'm going to go to is a demonstration of propofol infusion and its setup. And what you need to know is that Dr. Schaefer, in April of 2001, prepared a report for the prosecution. This report, however, described Alberto Alvarez seeing a bottle in a bag and seeing white substance in the bag, which was probably propofol. Schaefer made a report stating that Alberto Alvarez made this statement by his testimony, but it was not until 2 weeks after Dr. Schaefer had written his report, Alberto Alvarez was taken to the district attorney's office for the very first time to identify these matters of evidence and asked to redraw an image of a bag which he had drawn several months before. Take a look as we go through.
And what you're doing now is what? So I'm now putting the tab back where it was found. I'm placing this inside the bag.
And this is the propofol bottle?
And that being the propofol bottle. And then using that to support the propofol bottle like that.
And does the propofol then, in this setup, continue to drip and infuse into the patient if this had been utilized?
Yes, there's no difference in the plumbing when the bag, when the propofol is suspended inside the bag.
The absurd hanging contraption. Two tubings and a cut saline bag to hang a propofol infusion, that's absurd. It comes with its own hanging sleeve. All you have to do is to pull it and place it on the IV pole. There is no reason to empty a saline bag, cut a hole, place the bottle in it, and then to create that kind of hanging mechanism. That did not occur. Here you see Schaefer, bottle in the bag. The arrows points to two tubings that he had set up. You saw my schematic earlier. That did not happen.
The next step in setting this infusion line would be to place the bottle of propofol. It would be to spike the bottle of propofol, to actually take a bottle of propofol and attach it to this.
Yes, can you please show us
Yes.
how that would have been done?
So, again, the part that doesn't take medical training. This is the bottle of propofol. And I've now spiked the bottle of propofol with this spike, which I can then hang.
And can you describe what you're doing right now to hang it?
There's a little label right here, a little plastic label, little plastic strip, intended to hang this from an IV pole, like this.
You saw that little plastic hanging device. It comes on every propofol bottle. I have been using propofol for more than 20 years. I've seen it hung in all different settings. I've hung it myself. It is a preposterous claim that I would have cut a hole in the bag and create a hanging concoction that he had never seen himself as an anesthesiologist. Here it is that you look at him with his finger going through the little hanging device just for clarity. Okay? But
Describe what you're doing right now to hang it.
There's a little label right here, a little plastic label, little plastic strip, intended to hang this from an IV pole, like this.
And looking at people's 30, does this contain the same pipe decal apparatus used to hang it?
Yes, this has the same decal apparatus. Sure. Just a moment.
Thank you.
now, that's deception. Dr. Schaefer had his own demonstrative bottle. You saw that. He had pulled the tab. He had hanged the bottle. The DA picks up the actual evidence which was found at the scene, and he altered that evidence in the courtroom to fit their theory of hanging a drip, to try to get away from that absurd concoction of hanging it in a cut saline bag. Now I realize that you did not see that. You just missed it again. You missed it in the trial. But that was one of my worst days. I cannot believe that in the court that we expect to find impartial, judicial behavior, that conduct could be so extreme by a court officer, an officer of the court. Look at it again. This time, I want you to listen to the sound when the DA gets up and walks to the camera with his back to the camera, and he continues to pull that tab open. Then he sticks his finger through the tab and asks Dr. Schaefer, does this have the same hanging tab as the demonstration, as the one you just used for demonstration? He's an educated man. He's been in law for the longest while. Couldn't he see it was the same thing? Why destroy the evidence? And especially in open court. What is his motive? His motive, of course, is to win. It's not about justice. This was unfair and not justified. Take a look at Dr. Schaefer's hand after they are called to the side bench. And you would see Dr. Schaefer is trying to replace that hanging device around the propofol bottle. I call that, probably you decide, is that collusion? Take a look once more. Did you hear that sound? No, you did not. But this is what happened. He altered evidence in open court. Evidence number 30. That is the actual evidence discovered at the scene.
Describe what you're doing right now to hang it.
There's a little label right here, little plastic label, little plastic strip, intended to hang this from an ivy pole.
Now watch the prosecutor. He's going to come, put his back to the camera, and he is going to alter the evidence. Listen to it when he pops it. Listen carefully.
Looking at People's 30,
There it is.
does this
Hear
contain the
that clip?
same
He just popped it.
decal
Stick his hand through the
apparatus
actual evidence item,
used to hang it?
Yes,
and they're
this
called
has
to the
same
side bench.
Decal apparatus.
Right there and then. Dr. Schaefer is going to help him by trying to replace that strap on the bottle. He should not have done that. He is a witness and an expert. There's no reason to replace what was just destroyed. So this is what happened after this occurred. They stopped court. They placed the jury in the jury's box. I went to a side courtroom and broke down. I wanted to shout, jump, bawl. It was horrible. And this is what happened when the defense team went to the sidebar. They approached the judge and said that Mr. Walgren just altered a piece of evidence, exhibit number 30, that was extremely important to defense. And the judge, before anything else, this is his answer. This is testimony. This is the court record, and you haven't seen that. These were his words. He didn't open it. Mr. Walgren, very tremulous at this time, admitted, yes, Your Honor, I did. As a result of this, they went into a stipulation of fact to say that this occurred. But the stipulation was not agreed on by me up till today. My defense attorney accepted the DA to make a statement saying that he did it for demonstrative purposes. It was not. It was ill intent and deliberate. Take a look.
Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Walden, it's my understanding that the parties have entered into a stipulation.
Yes, may I read it?
Yes, and ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Walden is going to read the stipulation. That stipulation is also going to be provided to you in written form as People's 221. So this stipulation in writing is 221, and Mr. Walden will read it a little slowly. Thank you.
Should I? For demonstrative purposes, the tap handle on People's 30 has been lifted from the bottle by the People's attorney. However, at the time People's 30 was recovered, the tap handle was intact, unused, and attached to the bottle.
Unused, unattached.
Is that stipulated by the people, Mr. Walden?
It is, Your Honor.
Thank you. By the defense, Mr. Chernoff? It is. Thank you.
Never used to hang as part of any drip. This was wrong. It was misconduct, to say the least. It should not have happened. But they had to make their theory fit, and they needed a drip. So they were about to alter whatever was necessary to be as deceptive as possible, just to mislead. I sat there, couldn't blink an eye, with a camera on me for 8 hours of court. It was very difficult, painful. You can't imagine, as a human being and as a U.S. citizen, I never had any issues with the law. I could not expect this at any level. This was a monumental disaster. It was extremely harmful to me and dishonest. For demonstrative purposes, here it is again. What was there to demonstrate? Dr. Schaefer had brought his own bottle, his own tubings, which were not evidence, demonstrating to the jury, as if it was evidence. The DA was of the thought that we did not know there was a hanging device. It was not we who did not know. He did not know. Otherwise, he may have long postulated using the hanging tap and may have destroyed it outside of court. But in order to change the absurdity of his concoction, which made no sense, he pulled and destroyed the tab to get over. and hang it that way, but he was caught. What is tampering? You can read it yourself, but I'll just touch a few things. A person who commits a crime of tampering with evidence, when he or she knowingly alters, conceals, falsifies, or destroys any record, document, or a tangible object with the intent to interfere with an investigation, possible proceedings by the federal government, that is punishable. Prison, not more than 20 years, a fine, or both. What's the punishment for prosecutors? He becomes a judge. Anyone else would have been in jail. Then this is what happened next. Following the fact that he was caught red-handedly in open court, the next day in court, he gets into the evidence box, dips his hand without searching for much, and pulls out a piece of evidence which was already shown to the court. This time, it was altered. It was modified. But he tried to pass this on to the defense medical expert, Dr. White. He blames this man for altering the evidence. The key important thing here is this. Dr. White may have been in Dallas, or he may have been in Los Angeles, but he clearly did not or was not around any evidence that was in the possession of the court. The evidence that he will show you now that he tries to pass on Dr. White was altered outside of active court. And it was in the sole possession of the court. Tell me then, did it modify itself? Who did it? He did not stop there. He altered yet another piece of evidence. If so, did he commit a felony the first time? And did he commit another felony? And if he was to be charged with both, if you think he did, we're at least up to 40 years imprisonment now. But he becomes a judge. Look carefully at the next 8 slides. See what he tried to do to Dr. White.
Removing defense WW from the envelope. May I approach a witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Dr. White, you were here in court when Mr. Chernoff presented this to Dr. Schaefer, correct? And I'm referring to defense WW.
I believe so, yeah.
And did you provide this to defense counsel?
No, I did not.
Let me show you. Do you see how the venting cap has been removed to make it appear different than it normally would?
Yeah, it looks like it broke off, actually.
Did you do that?
No, I did not.
He blames Dr. White. Did you do that? Again, this evidence was in the sole possession of the court.
Did you put this milky substance?
I don't recall if I did. I honestly don't. I certainly did not break the cap off the vending fork, no.
And you see this kind of reddish coloring on the short tube. Do you know what that is?
No, I didn't. I don't know that I've seen this.
But you would agree that in some manner it's been modified, whether broken or otherwise, it has been modified to make the venting cap look different. Would you agree with that?
It looks like it's missing. As I recall,
would you agree with my statement that it's been modified, either it broke off or something?
it looks like it, yeah.
In the DA's own words, he said, it has been modified. Do you agree that it has been modified, Dr. White? Certainly. But Dr. White was nowhere close to that material. This was in the sole possession of the court.
When you say missing, because there's actually a plastic cap that would go over this and cover this hole, correct?
The ones I'm familiar with, if I may, have where that little side area is, it's connected and it's a little flap type device. I've never seen this setup before.
I've left defense WW on the Elmo. I'm opening People's 157. in place.
Correct.
Okay. It's different than defense WW, correct?
Correct.
But your testimony is you have no idea how that cap was removed from defense WW?
No idea. I've never seen it before.
It wasn't done to mislead Dr. Schaefer, was it?
That's argumentative. The objection of the court is sustained. Did you replace?
I replaced people's exhibit on placing defense WW back in the envelope.
Thank you.
Would you imagine the DA, David Walgren, says it wasn't meant to mislead Dr. Schaefer? Again, this evidence item was not in the possession of Dr. White. It was in the possession of the court. And Mr. Walgren's office is attached or is some part of the courthouse. He did not find the item easily sitting on top of the package when on the day of court. He dug his hands, one motion, pulled it out, and then tried to scapegoat the doctor.
Would you agree that this is very compact and would be easily concealable? Would you agree with that statement?
I guess I don't.
This was the tubing that they said I absconded with from the scene. As I showed you the schematic earlier that had two tubings. However, the same bag that Alberto Alvarez described as having the white milky substance in the bag, you would realize not only would I have had to abscond with the tubing, but I would have had to abscond with the saline bag that had the white material or liquid propofol in it. That bag has never been seen. That bag has never been discovered. That bag and or the tubing has never been seen because they did not exist. What's the punishment? When two prosecutors in such a case and alters evidence to win, they both become judges. They are the ones that will judge you today, your children, your parents, your friends, and your neighbors. This is not good. There is a punishment for doing that. You can read it for yourself again.
Description yesterday of what you said Dr. Murray did.
Yes.
Was not to hang the bottle from the IV stand. You didn't testify he did that, right? Right?
The bottle was clearly.
Did you Doctor?
The answer.
No,
Well, it's supposed to be yes or no.
It's yes
so
or no.
Partial answers, disregard. We asked.
Did you testify to that or didn't you?
Repeat the question.
You got to repeat the whole question.
All right. In your testimony yesterday, you did not demonstrate or tell the jury that Dr. Murray used a tab on People's 30, right?
I did not speak of it one way or the other. I did not consider it relevant.
In your testimony yesterday, you did not demonstrate or tell the jury that Dr. Murray used a tab on People's 30, right?
I did not speak of it one way or the other. I did not consider it relevant.
You showed them, Dr. Murray, or demonstrated to them Dr. Murray putting a bottle of propofol into an IV bag and propping it up in there, right?
Yes. I didn't show them him. I showed them me doing that.
And then testify that's what you think happened.
Correct.
And you testified that you've never seen anyone do that before, right?
Not propped up in that manner.
And prior to Mr. Walgren popping the hanging tab on the vial, you know that that had never been done to that bottle. That hanging tab had not been pulled out. You know that, right?
That, Your Honor.
Well, whether he
but
knows
it
it or
assumes
not.
facts, not evidence. There's speculation on this witness's part.
No, hold on, please. Neither counsel should be speaking objections. We've been through this before. The objection is overruled. You can frame the question and address it to Dr. Schaefer. Go ahead.
The propofol bottle that you used yesterday for your demonstration had a hanging tab on it, right?
That is correct.
And you hung it from the stand for the jury to see.
Correct.
And when you did that, thanks to gravity, you were able to infuse some propofol from that bottle. Is that right?
Correct.
Now, People's 30, which is the propofol bottle that was found at the scene, prior to Mr. Walgren popping it up in court yesterday, you know that that tab had not been opened or manipulated at all.
No, I don't know that.
Well, we stipulated to that. Would that surprise you?
I know you stipulated to it, but
No, it's a fact. It's a fact. And it's a stipulated fact, Doctor. So, under your analysis, Dr. Murray would have taken an IV bag, right?
yes,
Cut a hole like you did with your IV bag,
for the bag we found.
gone through the mechanism of putting that propofol bottle in the IV bag,
Yes.
right? Propping it up,
Yes.
and then infusing it that way. To going through all those steps.
Yes.
You find that reasonable to assume?
Yes.
You know, you made a statement yesterday, or days run together, it might have been the day before yesterday, that it is not a good idea for a scientist to make bold predictions or bold grand statements, I believe you said, something like that, referring to that propofol sleep study, without sufficient evidence. You remember saying that?
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof.
And you certainly do consider that what you have claimed occurred in this case is an extraordinary claim.
Not at all.
You understand that Dr. Murray is literally on trial for his life. The propofol bottle that you used was not the same propofol bottle, dimension-wise, that was found in Michael Jackson's house. Is that right?
That is correct.
It's thinner.
Correct.
It's taller.
Correct.
You also, prior to putting that propofol bottle in the IV bag, the cut IV bag, you actually did an initial demonstration by draining some propofol from it by hanging it from its hanging tab. Is that right? Do you remember
That is
doing
correct.
So the propofol bottle that you put in that cut IV bag had some propofol out of it already, had some liquid out of it already. Is that right? And that's the bottle that you used in your demonstration. Is that right?
That is correct.
Have you ever had occasion to do the demonstration with this bottle?
No.
This bottle be,
People's 30, I'm holding up. Thank you. Now, the bag, People's 29, when's the first time you saw this?
I had seen pictures of it, but the first time I saw it was in this courtroom.
And using those pictures, you did your best to estimate the dimensions of the hole in that bag, right?
That is correct.
Your testimony was that you had never seen anybody do that with an IV bag, right?
Other than knowing that Dr. Murray did it, I have never seen anyone do that.
Dr. Schaefer, how do you know Dr. Murray did it besides what you've interpreted from the evidence?
That one was found at the scene.
All right,
That's my only evidence that one was found at the scene.
That's what I thought.
completely absurd and unthinkable contraption to hang a propofol vial when you see for yourself. It's so easy to remove the hanging tab and place it on the IV pole if that was going to be used for an IV drip. But that did not happen. That's why that hanging tab was intact. The DA was not aware of it. But when he found out about it, he tried to get one over, but was caught in the act. So, as I say here, the Schaefer's absurd propofol hanging contraption claim of what Dr. Murray did is equivalent to offering a friend a canned soda. But rather than popping the cap off the can, he asks you for a can opener so he can cut a hole in the bottom of the can so he can drink the contents. Does that make sense to you? Quite absurd. The DA's evil misdoing sometimes can catch up with you, karma. Walgren asked Dr. Schaefer, assume that the individual setting up this IV drip did not know there was a tab handle. Are you aware there was a slid saline bag recovered in this case by law enforcement? Walgren to Schaefer, have you seen such a bag used to serve the process of hanging a propofol vial? Schaefer, no. There is the reference, day 14th of the trial. And again, in summary, Mr. Walgren and or his associates, they were the ones who concocted this absurd hanging contraption because they were not aware that propofol vials came with a hanging decal.
Page 14. Yes.
And I'm going to take you down to the third paragraph.
Sure.
You can see that's where I'm heading. You said to understand what might have happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you actually italicized.
Yes.
You actually italicized might,
Yes.
right, for emphasis.
Yes.
You said, I've simulated an infusion of 100 milliliters of propofol.
Yes.
And in that same paragraph, you mention an empty vial of propofol was found in the blue bag where it was placed by Alvarez.
Keep in mind that Schaefer's report was 2 weeks before Alberto Alvarez ever identified that item. Even at the preliminary hearing, Alberto Alvarez could not identify one thing of the items while he was asked a series of questions.
That is correct.
An empty 100 milliliter vial of propofol was found in the blue bag where it was placed by Alvarez.
Correct. That's what it says.
And you know that it was after the time you wrote this report that Alberto Alvarez was for the first time taken to the property room and identified People's 30 as the bottle in People's 29.
Part of this witness, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You do know that?
No, I don't know that.
So Dr. Schaefer, this 100 vial of propofol, which was found in the blue bag, where it was placed by Alvarez, this is how he wrote his report. It was only weeks after this, after his report, that Alvarez went to the property room with the district attorney for the first time to identify Exhibit 30, which is the 100 milliliter vial of propofol, and Exhibit 29, which is a cut saline bag. This formed the crux of his theory.
Is it your statement that Alberto Alvarez, is it your testimony that Alberto Alvarez's statement says, I saw a propofol bottle in a bag?
That was what he said. And I'd be happy to read it from his statement if I don't have a copy with me. But he made a very interesting reference to seeing a blue bottle inside a bag in something milky. I do not believe he used the word propofol, but I'm happy if you can hand me his statement. I'll be happy to read to you what I based that statement on.
I'll do.
Propofol does not come in a blue bottle. Even Dr. Schaefer confuses himself there because he can't remember their plan or what they had proposed to do. Propofol comes in a clear glass vial.
You do remember Alberto Alvarez saying there was no key substance in the bag, right?
Yes, a blue bottle and a milky substance is what he said.
Okay.
Again, propofol does not come in a blue bottle.
But YY is the exhibit that I'm showing you. It's Alberto Alvarez's statement. Is that what you're talking about that you saw?
Yes, this is. Let me just take a quick look. But this looks familiar.
Did you review anything else on Alberto Alvarez? Any police officer notes?
No, this is what I reviewed. This is what I reviewed. I'll vote.
Did you know that he
Is there
made
something else? Let me say that's all that I recall right now. If there was something else in the large packet of things about Mr. Alvarez, I don't recall it right now. I cannot absolutely say that there wasn't. I reviewed a lot of documents, but that is the one on which I based this statement.
You based your statement, your report, not only on Alberto Alvarez's statement, though, right?
Correct.
You based it on your assumption that Alberto Alvarez was telling the truth. You based it on your assumption that Alberto Alvarez was telling the truth.
Yes.
With one of these bottles.
That's correct.
And you propped up one of these bottles in this bag, right?
Correct.
And you said, that's what I think happened.
That's correct.
Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, that's correct.
That's a bold claim, isn't it? Isn't that a bold claim?
It's an honest statement. It's what I think happened.
Well, actually, what you said was you couldn't conceive of even one piece of evidence that would contradict that claim.
I'm not aware of any.
All right, let's talk about that claim. Showed the jury, set up for the jury, you used 2 IV lines. Is that right?
That is correct.
Neither one of those IV lines that you used were found at the scene. You know that.
That is correct.
And that particular IV line you attached to a saline bag. Is that right? In
That
your
is
demonstration. That IV line, there's no evidence that anybody has ever purchased that IV line except you, in this case, right?
Anybody has ever purchased that IV line except me? I mean, that IV line has been purchased by thousands of people.
Is there any particular reason why you chose that IV line? Can you hear me okay? I know I'm getting behind. Okay. Is there any particular reason why you brought that one IV line to show the jury?
Yes. There is a reason.
All right, so tell us.
I contacted Seacoast Medical a couple days before I came out about buying the other line, and they said that it had to be drop shipped and it would take 2 to 3 weeks. And I didn't have 2 to 3 weeks, so I brought the line that I brought.
This is the line I brought.
Yes. Seacoast Medical was unable to ship me the other line.
So Schaefer, so Dr. Schaefer brings to court propofol vial and IV lines and tubings which were never found at the scene and shows it to the jury. They were never evidence. He said he could not find the actual evidence item because he had ordered it from Seacoast Medical. But the truth is, the district attorney had the exact line. They could have shared it with Dr. Schaefer, but Dr. Schaefer used that line particularly because he had something else to do. That 3 feet distance away from the J point, he will soon demonstrate to the jury that when you inject the propofol into that line, none of it will get to Mr. Jackson, implying that Dr. Murray could not have done it that way. And I was telling a lie, which you can tell when you look at the actual evidence item, the XL 07774 tubing, you will see it's only 6 inches in length from the Y port and not 3 feet.
Other than courtesy of Columbia, you have no information that Dr. Murray ever purchased that ID.
No, he purchased the Excel part 007774.
Did you have occasion to investigate any other source of supply for that ID line?
For the Excel 007774?
Yes.
I looked at other sites,
Go ahead.
and I did not find other sites that were available, but I'd be delighted to know if you have one here, I'd be delighted to examine it.
Yes, we are delighted to show him and to remind him that the district attorney had the line. There we go. That's the answer. They had the line.
You had evidence that it was used. Was that you had a Seacoast medical record that a bunch of these were purchased in June. Is that right?
That is wrong.
You had other evidence that line was used, that line was at the scene?
No, you misstated the evidence.
Okay. Well, did you have other evidence that line was at the scene?
The evidence you stated was not correct.
Okay. Well, was it purchased in July, August, May? Do you have records?
I have the records, and I'll refer to them exactly.
The bottom line is, whether this line was purchased in July, August, May, wherever, that was not the significant thing. The fact is, that line was never used on Michael Jackson and has never been a line that was found at the scene. That line was used in my office in Las Vegas for performing nuclear cardiology testing.
Let me show you XX. This is the IV setup that you... Is that the IV setup that you used yesterday to show the
Yes, it is.
infusion of...
Wait, please. We have partial question. Re-ask it, Mr. Chairman.
Is that the IV setup you used yesterday in front of the jury to show the infusion of propofol?
Yes, it is.
What you did... This line is the line I think Dr. Murray used to infuse propofol.
Correct.
And then you also further demonstrate to the jury how it would be impossible for Dr. Murray to have injected the propofol, he said, without a saline wash. Remember that conversation? Remember you injected in front of the jury and it went down the tube and it didn't reach, and you said that shows it's impossible. Remember that?
Objection. I don't know. The word impossible was used.
I don't believe.
What did you say?
Wait a minute. The objection is sustained. Misstates the evidence. You may re-ask. Go ahead, Mr. Chernow.
You can, in your own words, just explain what your demonstration was all about.
Again, this line was never evidence, never found at the scene. It was Dr. Schaefer's lines that he brought to the court to show the jury. And he said that line that Chernow just lifted is the line that Dr. Murray used to infuse propofol. That, again, did not happen. This is what he did. And this was probably the primary purpose for using the line. The 3 feet distance from the whiteboard that he talks about, you'll see soon, he took that false tubing, which was not evidence. He took a 20 cc syringe. No 20 cc syringes were found at the scene. Only 10 cc's. And the shipment orders will tell you, I did not order 20 cc syringes for Mr. Jackson. Now, when he injected the propofol into that long tubing, it basically stayed in the tubing. So it was clearly implying that could not happen. It was impossible. We're pushing a substance through 3 feet versus 6 inches. That's significantly different. He said to the jury in his own words, what you see is all in the tube. None of it reaches the patient. And it's implied it's impossible to have administered propofol that way to Mr. Jackson. But again, his tubing was false, the syringe was false. As you see in the summary slide at the bottom, none of the syringe nor tubing were considered as evidence.
Line that you showed to the jury, right? I'm looking at.
Yes, the Braun infusion set.
I'm going to tell you that it is identified as XX.
Okay.
This, and by the way, show us real quick where the venting is on this.
The vent, if you could step just a little bit back, Mr. Chernow, so the juror's view is not obscured.
This is the vent right here. You'll recall that it did not run until I opened the vent so that the air could come in.
Dr. Murray said in his statement that he pushed in 25 milligrams of propofol in that formulation into the Y connector on the IV site that was connected to the saline bag, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And yesterday's demonstration in front of the jury, when showing where the medicine would go, you remember showing that?
Yes.
You used a 20 cc syringe and 2.5 milliliters of propofol. Is that right?
Yes.
And you used a different IV set than what doctor said that he used. He said something about 3 feet.
That particular one was about 3 feet. And if the seacoast is much closer, then that's doesn't change anything. But if it's closer, then it's closer. Sure.
I want to worry about, is it close?
Yes.
Substantially so.
In the states that he's looking at?
I take it that that's the question. Overruled.
Yeah.
Substantially so.
Substantially so.
Do you see the difference? Substantially so. How short that tubing is after the Y port? Not 3 feet. There is his 3 feet example with arms stretched apart. And the medication that he injected in that tubing stayed in the middle of the tubing. Could not even exit the tubing. This is in the next slide I will show you.
He said something about 3 feet.
That particular one was about 3 feet. And if the seacoast is much closer, then that's doesn't change anything. But if it's closer, then it's closer.
that that's the question. Overruled.
Yeah. Substantially so.
Substantially so.
It may appear to Dr. Schaefer that if it's shorter, it doesn't make much of a difference. It does make a significant difference to me because it was deception. There he is on your left with arms stretched apart with a 3 feet piece of tubing that he injects to. And on the right side, he holds the 6 inches difference between both arms. Do you see the significant difference? That's substantial. Okay? It means that if I did give Mr. Jackson 25 milligrams of propofol, it could be easily delivered in the shorter tubing as compared to that 3 feet distance which Dr. Schaefer brought to the courthouse, stating that he brought that only because he could not find the actual evidence item. But the actual evidence item, as you saw in a few slides back, the district attorney had it in their possession. And they had a model also that they could have used for demonstration. Dr. White, my medical expert, further demonstrates propofol via the Y port of the actual evidence item, or model thereof. As you can see, if you look at the distance from the table to the top of the cup, that's the height of that. The injection port starts right at this J junction, this fork, the Y junction. And you can see how short a distance it is to get the tip of that into this cup so he can inject the propofol through the tubing and into the cup, not a 3 feet distance. That tubing that Dr. Schaefer brought to the court was not evidence. His demonstration was not true. It was deceptive. And therefore, again, further demonstrates fabrication in this entire case. In this section, I'm going to introduce Alberto Alvarez. As you remember, Mr. Alvarez is the one who said I told him to remove items from the IV stand and to put it away. That did not happen. He is the one who also demonstrated or told the court that he had seen a white substance in the bottom of a saline bag with a bottle propped up in the bag. That too did not happen. That same bag was tested by the coroner's office. They could not find residue nor propofol in that bag. I will take you to Alberto Alvarez's statement and I will show you some other things that he did for the DA.
When you removed the saline bag from the IV stand, did you notice anything unusual about that saline bag?
Yes, sir. I recall that while I was detaching it from the IV stand, the bag was at my eye level, so I was able to notice that there was a bottle out of this bag.
And when you removed the saline bag from the IV stand, was this the type of, well, let me show you. Does that appear, by everything you can tell on the appearance of the bottle, does that appear to be the same bottle that you saw inside of that saline bag?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Propofol bottle now inside of the saline bag. Does this accurately represent what you saw hanging from the IV stand on June 25th, 2009?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as it is depicted in this bag with the metal-rimmed stopper toward the bottom of the bag, toward the port, was that in which the bottle was seated inside the bag?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was it slightly sideways as well as reflected in its current state?
Yes, sir. It was a little bit more towards this area, the stopper.
Okay. More toward the side?
Yes, sir.
Okay. May I publish this to the jury?
Let's just find out, because Mr. Alvarez just manipulated a little bit.
remember seeing it like that, sir. Something like that.
And you've indicated on kind of a diagonal within the bag. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
Hey, you've testified that this, I believe your testimony was this is the bag that you saw.
That appears to be the bag that I saw. Yes, sir.
How do you know?
It looks like the one I took off the stand, sir.
And you notice here this particular bag that appears to be the exact bag you saw has no milky substance in it.
Yes, sir. I see that.
We also, let me go back to that. We also asked you at the preliminary hearing to describe the vials that you saw, right?
Correct.
Can't describe. You remember saying that?
I believe so. Yes.
You said that all you could tell was I asked you the color of the labels. I asked you all kinds of specifics.
I said I believe I said that I didn't have a clear view of all the bottles, sir.
Well, but today you're saying that this.
Objection. This misstates the testimony. Which files are we talking about?
Well, let me sustain. Just a moment. It's sustained. Re-ask. You're saying that this is the bottle you saw on June 25th, 2009. That's your testimony today.
That is that
Testimony states it was, appears to be.
I'm going to overrule the objection, and you may explain.
I said that appears to be the bottle that was in the bag.
And the one you were asked to remove had a bottle inside of it?
Yes, sir.
And can you describe what you observed about that bottle or that saline bag that you removed?
Well, what I recall is, like I said, it was at my eye level, and I was able to notice that at the bottom of the bag there was what appeared to me like a milky white substance, sir.
Okay. Was that in the bottle or the bag, or could you tell with certainty?
I recall seeing it at the bottom of the bag, sir.
Okay.
So Alberto Alvarez recalls seeing this white substance at the bottom of the bag. Remember, Shanav just showed him the evidence item, and there was no white substance or white milky substance in that bag. You also remember that the coroner's office did test that bag, and they could not find any white milky substance nor any residue of propofol.
The milky white substance in this area here, and then at the bottom of this particular portion device here.
Okay, so you've indicated a milky white substance in this bottommost apparatus on your diagram.
Correct.
And you also recall seeing some white substance above the apparatus, which would actually be, I guess, in the saline bag, to your knowledge?
Correct.
Okay. And inside of this, then, was an actual bottle or glass vial?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was that essentially resting at the bottom of this bag?
Correct.
Okay. On the inside?
On the inside, yes, sir.
So Alberto Alvarez points out with the pointer exactly where he saw the substance, as you just saw indicated on that drawing. Keep in mind, this drawing will become very significant very shortly. Just keep looking.
Mr. Alvarez, do you see that saline bag in People's 28?
Yes, sir.
Okay. By all appearances, does that appear to be the same saline bag that Conrad Murray had you remove and place in the bag?
Yes, sir.
In the next few videos, you would see Mr. Alvarez now has a nice little smirk on his face, fixes his tie, and gets ready for the camera. This is an entire plot arranged between Alvarez and the district attorney. Look at this. And
at an earlier date, earlier than today, Did you attempt to draw a picture of the kind of the general shape and structure of that bag?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can I have a diagram that's previously been shown to defense counsel? May this be 27 for identification?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. So we're showing you. Could we dim the lights, please, Your Honor? So we're showing you what's been marked People's 27. Is that your drawing?
I'm embarrassed to say, but yes.
The topmost part of that diagram, this basically large rectangle, does that represent the actual saline bag itself?
Correct.
Okay.
So he laughs, he makes the jury laugh, and the courtroom. He's embarrassed at his own drawing. Was it his drawing? Let's look at that.
Part of that diagram, this basically large rectangle, does that represent the actual saline bag itself?
Correct.
Okay. And then it comes down to the bottom here where the saline bag terminates, and you drew this this apparatus or this device on the bottom of that saline bag. Is this drawing accurate what you saw?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you saw some white substance, does this diagram show where that white substance was?
Yes, sir. Can I use my pointer?
Please.
To show?
This drawing was not accurate to what Alvarez saw. Alvarez never saw such a bag hanging. This drawing was requested and produced at the request of, you will see, just watch.
Is seeing the milky white substance in this area here, and then at the bottom of this particular portion device here.
Okay, so you've indicated a milky white substance in this bottommost apparatus on your diagram.
Correct.
And you also recall seeing some white substance above the apparatus, which would actually be, I guess, in the saline bag, to your knowledge?
Correct.
Okay. And inside of this, then, was an actual bottle or glass vial?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was that essentially resting at the bottom of this bag?
Correct.
Okay. On the inside?
On the inside, yes, sir.
That did not happen. Alvarez did not pick up or hit any vials from a nightstand. Alvarez said he saw a milky white substance at the bottom of a cut saline bag. That did not happen. As you recall, it could not even be found on testing by the coroner's office. He held the saline bag with bare hands. He took it down from the ivy pole. He said it was at eye level. Was he wearing gloves? He also talked about Dr. Murray pulling out an IV from Michael Jackson's leg. 2 paramedics testified that they saw the IV in Michael Jackson's leg. As a matter of fact, they had to test the IV in order to administer drug to Michael after we moved him from the bed. That did not happen. He held a meeting with Mr. Walgren to redraw an image of his saline bag, the same drawing that he just showed the jury and made them laugh about. Pay attention to see how that drawing came about.
Mr. Alvarez, we have met before at the preliminary hearing. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
Today, you've shown a picture was shown to the jury. It's titled People's Exhibit number 27. It's take a look at it. And you were saying it's your picture, you drew it, and you did a poor job.
Yes, sir.
Right? When did you draw this picture?
I'm sorry.
When did you draw this picture?
Believe it was back when we were supposed to start the trial. I think it was May.
So Alvarez saw this drawing for the first time just about 2 years after Michael Jackson had passed. The very first time he saw the drawing was in May, prior to us starting the trial.
People's Exhibit number 27. Let's take a look at it. And you were saying it's your picture, you drew it, and you did a poor job.
Yes, sir.
Right? When did you draw this picture?
I'm sorry.
When did you draw this picture?
Believe it was back when we were supposed to start the trial. I think it was May. It could have been May or April, May of this year, of 2010.
You drew it after the preliminary hearing.
Yes, sir.
This, however, is not the first picture that you drew of this IV bag, is it? You drew it after the preliminary hearing.
Yes, sir.
This, however, is not the first picture that you drew of this IV bag, is it?
I could have drawn another one. Yes, sir.
In fact, you drew a picture of this IV bag for the police on the 31st of August, 2009.
Yes, sir.
Now, in August of 2009, 3 months after Michael had passed, you would see the drawing that Alberto Alvarez drew for the police, describing what he had seen. He does draw a bag with a bottle in it, but coming from the bottle or the IV bag, Alvarez does not draw two lines. He draws a single IV line, which also refutes Dr. Schaefer's hypothesis that there were two lines to give Michael Jackson a propofol infusion. So there were not two lines because that did not happen. The bottle, or the propofol vial with the hanging decal intact would be further evidence to support that bottle was not hang. The contraption of the bottle in the bag, the cut saline bag, the absurd proposal of a hanging device did not happen. But take a look at this first drawing that Alberto Alvarez drew. A single line, a single tubing is coming from this bottle or this bag. Watch it.
You remember this picture?
Yes, sir.
This is a picture you drew for
Single
the
line.
police, giving the bag to them.
This is the IV pole. This is the bag.
Is that
this
yes?
is the
You
bottle.
remember that?
Not two IV
I
lines.
don't recall that I drew that specific picture, sir.
Okay, so I guess it would depend on what a police officer would say about that, right?
I'm sorry.
It would depend on a police officer what he would say about that. Do you think did a police officer draw a picture of the IV bag?
Not sure, sir, but I don't recall drawing that because I would have drawn it more specific towards the IV stance, sir.
Well, this picture here that you drew, and by the way, you draw this for the prosecutors?
A single tubing coming from this IV bag that Alvarez was supposed to have seen, not two tubings, as Dr. Schaefer and the prosecutor tried to convince the jury existed, because that did not happen. Alberto Alvarez's detailed drawing of Exhibit 27, the one that he had the jury laugh about, his drawing, did not happen. He was brought to Walgren's office with the evidence items, and the police, the detective testified that when Alberto Alvarez was showing these evidence items, he did not recognize any of them. But he drew the bag for David Walgren after Mr. Walgren showed him the bag and asked him to redraw the bag in detail. It was then placed into evidence. The same bag that he's pointing out to where he saw the white milky substance. Guess what? No milky white substance was found in any such bag that Alvarez saw. The same bag that he said that he took down with his bare hands from the pole. He was excluded completely by fingerprints. Nowhere was Alberto Alvarez's hands or fingerprints found on any item discovered at the scene.
People's Exhibit 27, did you draw this for the prosecutor?
Objection B.
I'll overrule the objection. Do you understand the question?
No, I don't, sir.
Sustained on the ground. We asked.
Who asked you to draw this picture?
Mr.
Prosecutor?
Yes, sir.
Do you know him as a prosecutor?
Yes, sir.
And this was last time that we were preparing for trial. He asked you to draw this picture, right?
Correct, sir.
This picture shows, the picture you say you don't remember drawing shows tubes coming from an IV bag, right?
One,
Yes, that
two.
appears to.
And this picture, if it were drawn
Not
during your
two
interview
tubes.
on August 31st, 2009, would have been 2 years earlier.
Correct.
A simple question for Alberto Alvarez. Who asked you to draw that picture? He did not understand the question. It was not that he could not understand the question. He could not think at that time because, again, he was caught in deception. Now, do you think there was collusion in this case with the DA and witnesses collaborating to align statements and fabricating evidence? Is this alteration of evidence again? Was this justice? Was this fair? You decide.
Back to People's Exhibit 27, we see here at the bottom you've drawn a little nub. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you recall speaking to the police on August 31st, 2009, don't you?
Yes, I do.
A period of time, you never described to them that there was a little pointy nub coming from the bottom of the IV bag.
I don't recall, sir.
You don't recall telling them if you did? If
No,
there
I don't
was or
recall
there
if I
wasn't?
did. No,
Well,
sir.
did you?
I could have. Yes.
But you don't recall.
I don't recall, sir.
Now, the officer you spoke with was Detective Myers,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
So Detective Myers, you understand, would have taken notes, right?
I believe so, yes.
In fact, Mr. Alvarez, did you know you were being recorded?
Yes.
And and you've already identified one IV bag, right? You said this looks just like the bag that was up there on the stand, right?
Correct.
When did you see that picture for the first time?
Alberto Alvarez did not remember anything until he was reminded by Ed Chernoff of dates. And then he recalled when he saw it for the very first time. And when did he see it for the very first time? Where was Alberto Alvarez? Did you hear that answer? At Mr. Walgren's office, the assistant DA chief prosecutor in the Conrad Murray versus the State of California case.
I believe I was at Mr. Walgren's office, sir.
I'll show you People's 29, which you were shown by Mr. Walker earlier. It's an ID bag, right?
Yes.
That ID bag, you said, looks just like the bag you saw on the stand for that period of time you were up there, right? Based on your memory, right, from 2 years earlier, right? Let me show you Defense Exhibit H, which is a IV bag. Does that look like an identical IV bag?
Yes, sir, it does.
Identical to the one that was orange. Is that right?
Except for the...
Except for the black marking, right?
Correct.
And here, these lines, they're drawn on this bag, right?
Correct.
But this bag doesn't have those lines, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
The very first time that Alberto Alvarez saw the saline bag, Exhibit 20, he withdrew for the DA. That was at his office prior to starting the trial in October of 2011. This was done in May 2011, and this was almost 2 years after the passing of Michael. He was shown the bag for the very first time in the prosecutor's office and then drew the picture, which was placed into evidence. The picture of the same bag exhibit number 27, you remember. Alberto Alvarez pointing to areas within which he claimed the white milky substance was seen. But not even with testing by the coroner's office could they find such white milky substance. Nor could they even find a residue. You saw that drawing that he drew in 2009. A single line coming from a bag. Not 2 IV lines as proposed by the district attorney and Dr. Schaefer. So there wasn't a second line. I never absconded with any line that was missing from the scene. It just was not there. That was completely fabricated. Was not correct. Alberto Alvarez also held the bags with his bare hands. And he'll demonstrate to you how he did it. And we'll see whether or not there were fingerprints of any kind.
After you made this statement for the first time, which was August 31st, 2009, is that right?
That is correct.
That was the very first time you told anybody about taking down IV bags.
Correct.
After that time, you were fingerprinted.
Correct.
Where were you fingerprinted?
I was fingerprinted at my attorney's office.
He held the bag.
On the little hook of the IV stem.
Well, let me stop you right there. It was a curly hook, right?
That's correct.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
All right.
And I proceeded to grab it from the top, and I took it out of the hook, and then I grabbed it with one hand, and I dropped it in the blue bag that he instructed me to.
You just saw that you used both hands.
Correct.
You did use both hands.
Yes, sir.
The finger, you indicated for the record, both hands at the very topmost portion of the bag.
And yes, you didn't wear any gloves, did you?
No, sir.
You saw Alberto Alvarez held the bag with both hands, but you also saw him trying to distance himself as far away as possible from that bag. But he was not wearing gloves. He held it with both hands. Here is another image that describes Alberto Alvarez holding the bag with bare hands. No gloves. No fingerprints on anything. And I would underscore anything. Alberto Alvarez was not telling the truth, but he was motivated to embellish a story because he was being paid by the tabloids. Additionally, we talked about holding IV bags, which Alvarez again showed the DA, as you saw him with both hands. His fingerprints were excluded. And here are this list of questions to Mr. Alvarez.
To performing CPR, I believe your testimony is you were on the phone to 911.
Correct, sir.
And during that period of time, you were talking to 911. Your focus was on making sure you could get aid to Mr. Jackson.
That is correct.
And certainly during that period of time, you would agree with me that to the 911 operator.
That is correct, sir.
You weren't touching vials
No.
or IV bags during that time.
Not at all, sir.
Weren't putting anything away.
No, sir.
He was not touching vials, nor was he putting things away or holding IV bags. Makes sense why he has no fingerprints on anything. And during the CPR, as he said, he was focused on Mr. Jackson. And he performed CPR all the way until the paramedics arrived, which suggests he had no time to do all of the things that he claimed I told him to do, because those things did not happen.
training with CPR?
No, sir. I was, just doing regular chest compressions, sir.
During that entire period of time, you never touched any vials or bags or did anything other than CPR?
No, sir.
That's negative.
So we can safely say that during that period of time you were performing CPR, you put away no vials?
No, sir.
We're getting the double negative.
Did you put away any vials during that time frame?
Objection, bail gets to put away.
Overall, I did not.
You were compressing the chest?
Yes, sir. For a few moments, I did. Yes, sir.
Well, didn't you continue to perform CPR until the paramedics came?
If I recall correctly, yes.
Well, do you recall that?
Yes, I recall it.
So Alvarez
Detective was Detective Myers,
embellishes
right?
his story.
I believe so, yes.
And once again, this was recorded.
Right.
Okay. Well, we'll deal with that later.
Okay. Okay.
As noted, when you first reported all of these events, it was 2 months after Michael Jackson had died, right?
Yes, sir.
And prior to that time, you had already received offers from the media for your story. And who did you receive media offers from?
Various media outlets, sir.
Well, you received some on August 31st?
I probably did, yes.
And you received some before you talked to police on August 31st?
Yes.
So who did you receive offers from before August 31st?
I don't recall exactly who, sir.
Well, was it the mail?
Yes.
London mail?
Yes.
And they actually gave you a contract, didn't they? They handed you a contract.
They gave me a paper, yes.
There is a lot I can tell you about Alberto Alvarez's enticement for money from the media and to embellish his story, but I would not do this today. But one day, I'll give you much more detail in a different source.
I didn't go over it too well, but it did specify figures of if I was agreeing to anything that they would give me this money.
Any other offers before you spoke to the police on August 31st?
I'm sure there was, yes.
Alberto Alvarez's fingerprints were not found on any vials, saline bag, or any other evidence discovered at the scene. There was no milky substance or propofol residue detected for the coroner's investigation in any saline bag that Alberto Alvarez described. Although Alvarez had previously made interviews with the detectives, Smith testified that Alberto Alvarez did not mention an IV bag or Murray asking him to put anything in bags until after the cause of death was announced by the coroner's office on August 27, 2009. And I think the actual day that he met with the detectives was August 31st. By that time, he had received offers from the media. He was looking at all the programs from CNN and other media outlets that were discussing propofol and how it's being infused, and had lots of reasons to embellish his story. These are the things that he said. I was on the phone with 911 while performing CPR. I did not put away vials, touch IV bags, or put anything away while in the 911 caller performing CPR. I continued to perform CPR until paramedics arrived. I did not call 911 until I got back into the room. This is after he had left the room, to make sure that the children were outside of the room and that they were comforted. Fahim Mohammed, the head of security, came in almost immediately after he hung up from the 911 call. And then he went over and had a brief conversation with Fahim. Remember, up till this time, I am seeking help. If anyone knows CPR, to help me. I was a single operator. Mr. Alberto Alvarez goes over to speak to a security guard when they should have been rushing to my assistance so I can help their boss. He came over to me sometime after he had a conversation. But to loop back on the top, he was on the phone with 911 while performing CPR. If you listen to that 911 call again, you will hear Dr. Murray's voice in the background shouting out the details for the operator, including Michael's age. Alberto Alvarez was distance away from me. He did not know a thing about his boss. You listen to that 911 call again and hear me in the background shouting for help. I wanted him to get there and get to me as soon as possible. The 911 knew where to come. They should have showed up. There was no landlines in the house to call 911. No one would be allowed through that gate, not even the police if they came there, because security would not allow the premises to be breached. I needed help. And even when they arrived, they still did not help me.
No, how do you get, there's, well, Doctor, your opinion, you do understand the difference between opinion and fact, don't you? Do you?
I'll sustain the objection.
You understand that everything you said in the last 2 days was your opinion. You do understand that, right? Do you understand that?
I stated my name, which I think is a matter of fact.
Again, Dr. Schaefer, in an entire trial that was so profoundly destructive to me, he states his name as a matter of fact. Everything else was his opinion. Everything else he brought to the courtroom, the IV tubings, the propofol bottle, the concept, the absurd hanging concoction, that was all fabrication. Alberto Alvarez, the images he redrew for the prosecutor, the things he said he saw in the bag, none of it could be found, not even his fingerprints. Alberto Alvarez embellishes his story for the price, the ultimate factor of money, his motivation. Dr. Schaefer, what's his motivation? Notoriety, more notoriety, to become world recognized, to be on TV everywhere? Probably. I don't know. The district attorney, they both wanted to become judges, and so they are. They're in place to now sit on a bench, judge you, your children, sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, aunts and uncles, and neighbors, or even your closest friends. But you see, you have witnessed today some of the infractions that happened. You've seen today that although they say no one is above the law, people can be so deceptive, and you decide if the law was broken. You decided the DA committed crimes. And see how they are rewarded with furthering of their careers, but not incarceration. Neither was their fine. I will spend the rest of my life, whatever it takes, if I have to restore honor to myself, to my children. My pursuit will be implacable, unrelenting. A wrong has been committed, and in my lifetime, I hope I can have it made right. Let's continue. The images you see here of me was the day, when the District Attorney David Walgren altered the evidence. I had no choice but to sit there and to take it. I was pummeled. I was in pain. I couldn't say a word. I couldn't shed a tear for the public to see. But I did. In an adjacent courtroom, I was in shock and disbelief. Cannot believe this was our judicial system. Tearing a citizen of good standing, no issues with the law, with an unblemished medical career, never had a warning by a medical board or a medical disciplinary committee, never had a public reprimand, and was never ever sued for medical malpractice, though I practice in some of the most litigious states in the United States. I will hope that I could continue to have this matter resolved. But more than anything else, I'd like to continue as a human being to give service to humanity and my fellow men. I am not angry, but I am hurt. That you must know. I am not planning to be hostile, never will I. But I am hurt. I am badly damaged. And this was all fabrication. This was not right. I live to right this wrong. And so, I want you to hear what I say, but pay particular attention to what I do. And showing you some of the infractions and analyzing this case is part of what I will do. I also want to thank all the wonderful people from all over the world, and there's so many countries. I have over 5,000 letters, and I have not been able to write you a word back. But I plan to, as long as it takes. If you wrote me a letter, you would hear from me. I want to thank you so much. I have a general acknowledgement that goes out to all of you in the interim. Thank you.